Hey, Earthlings. So this is a bit of a special, if you like. I'm still in unusual circumstances, as you can tell. I'm dog sitting at the moment. And so if you hear any noises, especially barks, it's them and not me. And so today I'm going to be celebrating remembering an old mate of mine called Neil Lea. He was born in 1958 and he died in 2007 on this day, in fact, at 6:08 p.m. So for more than 20 years, Neil Lea was a real tireless campaigner. That's one of the main words that people use about Neil. I called him constructively pushy in one of my tributes to him. He started the Manchester Animal Protection Group, very active grassroots. Everything he did was on the grassroots and, of course, all unpaid. At the time, it was the time before Patreon and that kind of stuff. And then he started ARCNews, which became a real brilliant tool for the grassroots. And as you can see from here, there's a lot of things going on. This one is the other side of that, really, which is the local groups that are listed there. So there's a lot of grassroots things going on. It's interesting though, because this was before vegan education as we know it now. So even though these mags are from the beginning of this century, vegan education still wasn't going in the way that we know. And this is interesting because Neil Lea was a pioneer of his age, and it's really sad, really, that he didn't really see the fruits of his labour, in the sense that he never saw the vegan movement grow and take off as it did, which was after his death. He also began the Save the New Church Guinea Pig campaign, and that was 1999, and that came to fruition about 7 years later. It was a 7-year-long campaign. These pressure campaigns can take a long time, as we know. And he also started, in fact, he was getting very ill during that campaign. And I'm going to come on to the illness and the subsequent death in a minute, but I just want to go through his activism first. He started Real Food with his wife, Mary. And that won an award in the end, a Vegan Society Award in 2006 for the best vegan project and campaign. So he was recognised in that sense. He also started something called the Free Vegan Food Fairs, which were set up in local halls, and essentially you invited people in to try this newfangled vegan food. Now, of course, we're talking about a long time ago now, and so vegan food wasn't known as much as it is now, and so it was a kind of revelation in that sense. And so he started that, and then that kind of went nationwide in terms of Britain. It became a very favourite type of activism. He started Vegan Buddies. Now, this was an interesting initiative pre-internet, where you would essentially put a newbie vegan with someone who could mentor them, give them advice, go shopping with them, that kind of thing. So that was a great initiative. He was really he was really good at using imagination to bring about vegan solutions. That's one of his skills, if you like. He also had a database called Is It Vegan? So all of this was going on. So Neil Lea was a real hard-working vegan pioneer of his age. Now, in terms of his personal situation, he was born with spina bifida, which is a difficult thing to deal with in the first place. But he has other issues like a spinal cyst, which is very, very painful. And that led to other problems like kidney failure, so he needed dialysis and eventually a kidney transplant. The cyst was dealt with, but then it kind of came back, and it came back in such a virulent way that he was confined to a wheelchair because he lost the use of his legs. Doctors actually suggested that they could help him with the pain by injecting Botox into him, but he refused that because every batch of Botox is tested on other animals, just like vaccines, and so he refused that particular treatment. This added greatly to the amount of pain that he was in. You know, he kind of kept going. So ARCNews was very influential, as I said. I think I described him in one of my tributes as a born editor. He was constructively pushy, as I said, in the sense that he would kind of send you a book and said, "I need a review," and then like 2 days later he would write asking where the review was. You know, he didn't give you much time, and I think the fact that he knew from his own medical history that he wasn't going to live a normal lifespan. I mean, he accepted that, and so really he lived life to full in a campaigning sense because of that. It was almost like there's no time to lose, and so that's why he did that with other people. You know, come on, let's have it type of thing. In his personal life, just a final thought in a way, he was a big Trekkie. He was a Star Trek fan. He actually thought that the kind of Federation of Planets was a kind of vegan future, you know, where humanity had stopped fighting with itself, if you like. So he kind of thought that as a bit of a template for the future. And sadly, I suppose many of us would say he was a big Manchester City football fan as well. So I want to end with something that I wrote just after his death. There's a couple of articles that I wrote, and this is the end of one of them. I just want to finish with that. One thing I'll always be grateful to Neil Lea for is his reminders to me that I should keep my feet firmly on the ground and not lose all contact with the grassroots vegan activists who make up the heart of the animal movement. So this was the time when I was more involved with academia than I am now, and so, you know, I suppose that was his warning, as it were, don't lose contact with the grassroots, and I never did, really. Whether I succeeded to his satisfaction is debatable, but I hope I have. In fact, when I wrote my PhD, I took the potentially risky decision to state openly in the text that some parts of it were deliberately written for such activists, and I referred to several non-academic sources, such as ARCNews magazine. Animal activists do not tend to read sociology, and why should they? And yet there's a great deal they can learn from a sociological understanding of human relations with other animals, even if only in the negative sense of know thy enemy. On the more positive side, however, sociology can show vegan advocates the depth of the cultural norms and values they must challenge and transcend if any real progress for other animals and the vegan philosophy more generally is to become a reality. Thanks for the guidance, Neil. Rest in peace. And yes, I know, I will try harder. So there is a Facebook page called Remembering Neil Lea, and I just want to keep his memory alive. He was, as I said, a real pioneer of the movement. I've suggested that even now we're probably all still vegan pioneers, in the sense that our movement's not been going, our social movement's not been going for 100 years yet, and so in that sense we are still the pioneers. Obviously the real ones were in the 40s, but then we have the 70s ones and onwards, and Neil fits into all of that. Okay, Earthlings, check out Neil Lea and keep his memory safe, I'd say, and bye for now.